Walking along a path at the roots of Pikes Peak, you take a fork in the road towards the Anselm Society Digital Pub. Inside is a raucous conversation on the arts, faith, and phrases that make people crack up. And in the corner by the fire are three people. One of them fell into hysteric giggles. And that was me, your co-host, Christina Brown. Welcome to Believe to See, a podcast of the Anselm Society Arts Guild. Here at Believe to See, we explore the relationship between faith, art, and storytelling. Our goal is to connect the great story, the great stories, and our own stories so that we can better understand what it means to live with a Christian imagination. Well, my friends, it is the end of 2023, and the four of us thought we would join together and leave a fun list of potential reading for your 2024 year. So basically, without spoilers, as best we can manage, we wanted to give you our top favorite books that we read in 2023. And note, these are not necessarily books that were published in 2023, but they are books that we thoroughly enjoyed and found enriching and delightful. But before we delve in, we actually made a couple exceptions. You may have heard us talk about several, maybe more than once, very recently published books here on the podcast. And in many cases, we actually interviewed their authors. So, because we've already talked about them in very extensive ways, because we are quite all obsessed with them, we are not allowed to cite them as our favorites here. They are, and yes, that is why we've already recorded podcasts for them, The Homeward Ache by Amy Bakley, Horses of Fire by A.D. Rhine, Piranesi by Susanna Clark, and The Evangelical Imagination by Karen Swallow Pryor. We heartily recommend each of these, but we will not be using them on our list. Fair to say, though, we give them a huge shout out. Go back and listen to the podcasts on them. Okay, so after that preamble, I would be remiss not to welcome my favorite podcast hosts, Matthew, Evangeline, and Mandy. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Last time you said I was lovely.
I did say you were lovely, but I told you, I said that you were my favorite this time.
Because I
My
have a
favorite
mustache right
podcast.
now? Is that what happened?
Well, unless you grew a mustache in the last few minutes, no.
The three of us
No.
are her favorite three podcasts.
I know.
Yep.
I'm thinking
Co-hosts.
of that, like Incredibles host, like when everyone is special, no one is. None of us are her
no.
favorite. I'm very pessimistic today.
Wow.
Y'all three are my favorite.
Okay.
All right. So we each chose one book, but it was a very difficult decision, friends. So we actually have some honorable mentions that we will pull out a little bit later. But for now, we all have a fiction book that we chose. Mandy has chosen East of Eden by John Steinbeck. Matthew has chosen The Forest of Stolen Girls by June Hurd. Evangeline has chosen Fairy Tales by Stephen King, and I have chosen The Awakening of Miss Prim by Natalia I'm sorry, I just messed up her name. Natalia San Martin Fenolera. Okay.
Wow.
I know.
How could you possibly mess up that last name? Yeah.
So straightforward.
So straightforward. All right. So I'm just going to kind of dive in. And we have just a couple of things we just kind of want to like go through. Why did we like these books? What was significant about them? Et cetera, et cetera. So, let me see. Okay, I want to know why each of you decided to pick up the books that you picked up. I know for me, for example, it was a gift, and the people that gave it to me generally have really, really good taste in books. So I was like, sure, I'll pick it up. And it was a fiction book, and I'm terrible at choosing fiction books for myself. I try to experiment with a lot of new things, and it doesn't always work. I often feel like, oh, well, that was disappointing. So when I got this recommendation, and I was actually gifted it for my birthday, I was like, sure, let's dive in. So that's why I chose mine. Why did you guys choose the books that you chose?
They were recommended.
There you go.
Yeah, both my brother and my best friend recommended Fairy Tale, which is odd because it's by Stephen King. I've never read anything by Stephen King other than his book on writing.
Okay.
Which I think is called On Writing.
It is called On Writing.
Yes.
Nice. There you go.
Clever. Yeah, so because I'm not really, I love, as you know, Gothic horror, but I'm not really that into horror. So I never read anything by him. And Fairy Tale is very different than his usual stuff, I guess.
Okay.
But
Okay.
yes, it was recommended.
Nice. Matthew?
I found mine on the internet.
What?
What is this internet you speak of?
Yeah. So I was going on a car
Probably through
trip.
AI.
Whenever I go on a car trip, I need to have some good books. So I did like a Google search for like best detective novel of like this year, and it just appeared on a list. So it was very serendipitous.
Nice. And it was worth it.
It was.
Nice. So I should, and I want to know you, Mandy, but I suppose I should also ask the genres. Besides, they're all fiction, but like what kind of genre? But go ahead, Mandy. Why did you?
Well, East of Eden, I love John Steinbeck, and somehow I had never read East of Eden, which is insane because, I don't know, it's like iconic. I think partly because I had seen the movie when I was younger, but I'd read so many others by him. And then also I'm one of those people that I get, if a book is very long, which East of Eden is, it's like in the 600-page range. Sometimes I think, oh, but I could read, my to-read list is so big and that'll take, I don't know, that's kind of a backwards way to think about it, but I'm just being transparent. So anyway, so finally I was like, why am I not reading East of Eden? I have to read East of Eden. And then now I am probably going to read this book every year for the rest of my life. I adore this book. And it turns out it was his favorite book that he wrote. I found out.
Oh, that's cool.
And I'm like, you're right, John. I guess genre would just be literary fiction.
Okay.
I guess.
Sure.
It's definitely epic. Like it takes place over decades.
Neat. Okay. And you said yours was detective
Mine
fiction.
is historical fiction / mystery and suspense.
Okay.
But it's really good. So I feel like it's not just a detective novel.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not sure. I guess you would call it fantasy, but fantasy is just not a great term for all the things that fall under that umbrella.
Okay.
And I was thinking about it as we were getting ready for the podcast. This story is the kind of story that I like to tell, which is sort of a fantasy on the very edge of reality.
Oh, yeah. I love those.
In other words, it's, very much the world feels real and the people feel real. And it's sort of an intersection between reality and a fantastical world. But there needs to be a term for that. I'm accepting suggestions.
I think you should make it up. You're good at that. You're
Make
really
up
good
my
at-
own genre?
No, make up a genre for everyone else to use because you use it so well.
term for
a term.
everyone to
Sorry.
use.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Because you.
But
write it
also
so
just
well.
invent a new genre. I'm behind you. Go,
So
Evangeline.
it's not epic fantasy. It's not quest fantasy. It's, there's all these different.
But see, Stephen King
terms.
can do whatever he
He can
wants.
do
so
whatever
that's why
he wants.
his is so unique.
Yeah, you don't have to have a genre when your name is Stephen King.
Right. No. Ooh, I'll change my name to Stephen King. That's my new.
I know. We could all do that.
We should all do that. That's our new.
Brilliant.
Changing
Our
your
path to
name?
publishing is change our name to Stephen King.
Oh,
And then we're for sure they'll publish our books.
Exactly.
Why didn't we think of that before?
I don't know.
that's funny. That's great. That's a good point. Well, okay, so Evangeline has a new task, which is to come up with a term.
Homework.
There you go. Yes, that's great. Okay, so did I say mine yet?
You did not. I was
Okay.
about to say.
Yeah, I was sorry. I got so distracted. Yeah, mine is just historical fiction. I say historical,
But
but I think
why'd you? Oh no, you said why you picked it up because it was a gift. I'm sorry,
Yes, yes.
but yes, it's a genre. It's historical fiction.
I say historical, but I guess it's more present day. I guess. So what do you? That's just
Well,
fiction.
I would say if it's present day, then it would not be historical.
That's what I'm saying. So
That's just mainstream.
It's like historical,
Mainstream.
but today.
it's just called mainstream fiction.
mainstream literary.
Well, yesterday is history. So
So there we go.
That's true.
Not to be overly clever, but
Oh, it's so
So it's not like mystery or
Nope.
romance
Nope.
or anything. Then yeah, that's mainstream literary, which is what I write, and that's
Mainstream
why
literary.
nobody has any idea what to call it.
okay. There is a romance in it, and I would not consider it a romance.
Oh no!
book.
If it's a romance genre, there are beats that romance
There are
writers
rules.
have to hit.
There are rules. Okay.
There are rules.
Is it specifically about women and women's issues? Because it might be women's fiction.
Oh, there you go.
No.
Oh, okay.
Okay, never mind.
I think we have mainstream literary.
Okay, mainstream literary. There we go. All right.
All right, so Christina, we're all waiting for who you're going to call on to start.
Exactly. I think, you know what?
I think it should be him because he just said that.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think he's
Voluntary.
no, yes. What is it? Biting at the bit? What is it?
Chomping.
Chomping at the bit. Matthew, would you like to?
Sure.
Okay.
All right, so my book of the year is Horses of Fire by A.D. Ryan, but since we've been forbidden, my other book would be Piranesi, but we're forbidden. Okay, so this book so there's a whole lot going on with this book. So it's called The Forest of Stolen Girls by June Herr. And I said already that it's historical fiction, detective fiction. It's also kind of YA too, which that's how it's listed on like the product description on Amazon.
Oh.
I would not have said that having read the book, but whatever.
Are the characters that age group? Because sometimes that's why they call it YA.
They're kind of in the teen range, but it takes place in 1426, so it's like, that wasn't exactly a teenager back then, but whatever.
I think usually they toss it under YA or at least tack that on as a marketing thing if the characters are that age group.
Right.
Yeah, that's all fine. There's a lot of genres sort of thrown into this, which might be one of the things I like about it. But I'll give you the premise quickly. And as you all know, I love detective novels, and if it was up to me, I would only read detective novels, but I force myself to read literary novels because I know I should. Take your vitamins. Yeah, exactly. This is one of those...
And note that your two favorite books of the year are not detective fiction.
That is true. Mm-hmm. That is true.
So your forcing does well. Pays off.
So this one, I think you could call it a detective novel very easily. It was... the nominee for the Edgar Allan Poe Award in 2022. So it does play with those conventions, but I think it has sort of transcended the genre because it is so good, and I think it raises a lot of interesting issues. So like I said, it takes place in 1426 in Korea, and the premise is that the protagonist, who's also sort of the detective, she's like a young woman named Hwani. I'm going to mispronounce all the Korean people, so sorry in advance. But whose father sort of goes on this case to find girls who have been disappearing from this forest, and the father himself disappears. So Hwani sort of goes over there to try to find him, try to confirm what's going on, and then gets caught up in this mystery of what's happening to all of these girls in this region. So it touches on a lot of very interesting issues, I think, about women in that society and society more broadly. The atmospherics are really fantastic. I think she does a really great job capturing a really haunting atmosphere, captures that time and place. One of the things I really enjoy about detective fiction, period, is that I think it's one of the best ways to really learn about a specific time and place, because when the detective is investigating something, they need to really dig into a lot of the mundane things about everyday life, right? They need to interview normal people talking about their normal days, so you learn a lot. So I felt like I learned a whole lot about 15th century Korea and a lot of these practices here. Yeah. And I don't want to give too much away because the mystery aspect here is really good.
Yeah.
But you can read it just for an interesting mystery, like good mystery, good suspense, checks all the boxes you want from a typical detective story. But you can also read it from an historical perspective, learning about an area that, I didn't know a lot about. And you can read it because it does touch on broader issues too, that makes you think about some sort of underbelly of a lot of typical history. So in all of those regards, I thought this was a fantastic book. I really, really enjoyed it. Highly recommend it.
Neat.
All right.
What was the what was there a part of the book that sort of evoked a really strong emotional response from you?
Me and emotions. I don't know. But
Matt does not like emotions.
emotions.
Ew.
Well, especially not romance. Ugh, ugh.
Yuck.
Why are they pressing their faces against each
Ew.
other? Gross.
Oh, so unsanitary.
Ugh. But I like it. It does have a lot because the detective's young girl Juani, she lost her father. Father went missing. She has a sort of fractured relationship with her younger sister, who's apprenticing to like a shaman in the area, which is also interesting. So there's all these sort of family dynamics that are really compelling. And also you talk to a lot of the families of the missing girls throughout the investigation too. So I think there is very real emotion there. I speak as if I'm a robot, but
Other people might have emotion in those
it evokes
sections.
the emotions humans call pity. But no, it really was good because it spotlights something that is often footnoted in history
Okay.
and puts a human face on it.
I love that.
And I would say more, but that would give away some of the ending.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Did you have a favorite
don't do
character, like one that really resonated with you?
Oh, I thought the detective character was really great. Obviously, in detective fiction, it's very important to have a compelling detective, and to have a detective character in a time and place that's so different from where the genre originated, I think took a lot of creativity on the part of June Her, the author, and I thought she did a really great job. She checks the box as a detective that we would want in a detective novel, but also seems culturally correct and correct to the time period.
That's neat.
Yeah. Do you have any other questions?
Let's
Your
see.
interrogation.
I know, I'm interrogating. I feel bad. But there is one question I did have.
He does not feel bad.
It's true, I don't feel bad. Because you know you love it. Especially this next question. You love world building.
I do.
How was the world building? Even though it was historical fiction, how was it in this book?
Oh, it was absolutely fantastic. I thought June Her did a absolutely fantastic job. And again, it's one of those things I am vaguely aware of Korean history, but nothing in detail, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of this, they're talking about the various offices, how she goes into like this remote village, so how the village is set up, who the different people are, how they go about their daily lives. And for me, like this 21st century American dude, it's such a new world where it might as well be world building, right?
Yeah.
And I thought she did a great job of it, just showing how daily life works. And again,
Yeah.
you have to show how daily life works for a detective novel to be effective. So I thought she did really, really great with that.
That's neat. Good.
You said it was atmospheric,
Yes.
which is a term that I love, but is difficult, I think, to define and to like pinpoint, this is what the author did to create that specific atmosphere. So can you do that even though it's difficult?
Yeah, I will try. So I mentioned earlier that this book works on a number of levels. So I already talked about historical fiction, sort of like the fiction with a message, the detective fiction. It also works really great as a gothic thriller, I think. The premise, you just read the first chapter or two, it's really creepy. Like one of the backstories here, this isn't giving anything away because they tell it early, is the detective, Juani, and her younger sister were almost kidnapped when they were girls in the same forest. And they have amnesia, they were found, but there's all these reports of like some ghost-like figure in the background there. So just a really great sort of classic gothic premise. And the way she writes about the woods and like the forest, really, really effective, really creepy. And it works. It works as a gothic story too, in addition to all the other stuff.
Well, you had me at gothic.
Are there Moors involved? No.
Sounds like forest, which is kind of,
Yes.
your other choice of setting for
Yes,
the
very
gothic
true.
novel is,
Yes.
more the forest, creepy house, in
Definitely
either.
creepy
Definitely
houses too.
creepy
It has
houses.
creepy houses. Don't worry.
It's a
Roads
must.
that you're not sure where they go or pathways.
Oh yes, all the stuff,
that.
all the stuff.
All right,
Man
so
in a creepy mask. It's great.
Family secrets.
Family secrets.
Family
yes.
secrets.
There you go.
All fronts.
All right.
Firing on all cylinders.
Well, that brings me to the closing question I'll ask for each of your books. And that doesn't mean we can't talk about the books anymore. But the line for each of you after the book is, listeners might enjoy this book if they are interested in da-da-da or enjoy da-da-da-da. So what would your one line be, Matt?
Oh, man. If you like detective fiction, but you want more than just detective fiction.
Great.
Or I could say if you like historical fiction, or if you like more than just that, or if you like gothic fiction or whatever. If you like, that is one of the things I think this book does so well is it is kind of a mashup of a lot of different genres, but it holds together very cohesively, and I think is successful on all the levels that it goes for.
Wonderful.
You can plausibly pitch this as a YA novel too, which...
Okay, I was going to ask the audience age range.
Yeah, I think a YA audience could do it perfectly fine, but you don't have to be. I'm a
Sure.
30-something dude, and I thought it was great. So
Yeah, no, for sure. Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I am going to pick on Evangeline next. May I?
I suppose. I mean, if
say
I
I'm
said
going to, and then
no,
I say please.
Yeah, if you say no, what'll happen?
what's going to happen?
I'll ask Mandy, and then if she says no, I'll pick on myself. That's what's going to happen.
Okay, so like I said, my favorite book of the year was Horses of Fire by A.D. Ryan. But
if Believe to See had like a gold medal or something, we would give that to A.D. Ryan and Horses of Fire.
Yes. And since we have already done a podcast, I will not talk about it now. But I did also really and truly love Fairy Tale. It is, about a regular kid having a regular life who, through a series of events.
Current day?
Yes.
Okay.
Maybe a little bit past, but not not too much past. Just through a series of events, stumbles across a staircase that leads to another world. And, so perfect setup for me. I love that. He spends a lot of time, Stephen King spends a lot of time making you love this kid. He's very believable. But he's also very good. And at times you're like, he's almost a little too good. But that really has
Elsie Dinsmore style?
No.
Oh, okay. That's good.
No, nothing could be as bad as Elsie Dinsmore. Good Lord.
I know. It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad.
It's pretty bad. No, he's very good. He's very good-hearted. He's, strong and brave and all the things. But I think that is kind of to get you ready for the, the period of the book that takes place in another world and sort of the events and him, becoming a hero. Very important. And I know this is going to be a little bit of a spoiler alert, but there are people out there who need to hear this.
Okay.
There is a dog in this book. The dog is wonderful.
Oh, no.
It's okay.
Okay.
Oh, that's all. Okay.
That is what you need to know.
Okay.
I was going to say, if you say the dog dies, I'm out.
That is what, I mean,
So
it
he
is a
leads us to
spoiler alert,
believe it.
but there
Okay.
are people who need to know that
I
they
will
would
say,
just say,
I would
couldn't
give
read it."
up. It's like, I'm too worried about this dog. I can't
Exactly.
do it.
I mean, Old Yeller where the red fern grows, never
Yeah.
again.
I know.
Before-
Exactly.
before I
Trauma.
Before I started showing The Mandalorian to Danielle, I told her, it's like, sweetie, you need to hear this or else you won't be able to enjoy it. Baby Yoda's fine.
Yeah.
Nothing happens to him or else you won't be able to enjoy this show because you're too worried about him.
And I just think that's fair.
Oh, you have to. Yeah.
Okay,
All
so the dog is
people-
fine.
The dog.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
the reason
In the
that
Art of Racing in the Rain, the dog is not fine, but he narrates the book and it's awesome. But that's a whole other thing. Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, you choose what, in some ways you choose what emotional
And
torment
sometimes
you're
you-
going to put yourself through.
If you want to cry,
if you choose to
if
do
you want
that.
to cry, read Art of Racing in the Rain.
Okay.
I do not and do not plan to.
Okay.
That was so fast.
Well, the reason he has to go or decides to go to this other world is to save the dog, which is about as noble a purpose as anybody could ever have.
Yes.
And so I just want people to not read the back of the book or get into the book a chapter or two and then be like, no, I can't do this
Okay.
because
Gotcha.
you're so worried about Radar, the amazing, amazing dog.
Okay.
So little caveat, spoiler alert, but I feel like it's okay.
All right.
Okay.
I feel like it's a service, a public service. So, I just found myself actually resonating with the classic notes of Hero's Journey.
Okay.
And just the setting that he does in the fairy tale world is very reminiscent, at least to me, of Oz.
Interesting.
Which was, a book that I loved as a child. And so I loved kind of the take that he did. The bad guy is very, very bad. There's definitely peril and dangerous situations. And it's a good triumphs over evil story. And sometimes you just need that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
Very cool.
So my question for you is, I was just like reading through the plot synopsis, and it seems to be sort of thing. It seems like a very standard plot for this genre, right?
Mm-hmm.
A boy or a kid stumbles into a fairy world and has adventures there. So, and like you write in similar genres, so I'm sure you've seen this sort of thing lots and lots of times. So, what about this particular telling of the story resonated for you more so than like all the other books that are similar?
Great question.
I think what has happened to the people in the world is done very well. The fantasy world is under a curse. And I think it's always interesting when you think about the nature of the curse, why particularly these effects on the people on the land. There's a sort of a plot point or a condition there. The citizens of this world have what they call the gray, and they're all sort of losing their features. They're all sort of grayish, like bark, and then slowly losing the definition of their features. And I just think he does it so well. Stephen King is kind of like the old-fashioned just sort of journeyman writer. Like, he tells a story, he does not get in the way of it in any way. It is just the story.
That is so important.
So you are just like interested in the characters and what is happening.
Oh, I love that.
And sometimes you want literary description, sometimes you want beauty, beautiful words, but he does manage to, convey beauty.
Oh, he's excellent.
And yeah, he is. And really just everyday language that is very accessible. So
that's cool. Flannery O'Connor said that a story is a way to say something that can't be said any other way. It sounds like you said, he doesn't let anything get in the way of that.
He doesn't. Another author, why am I blanking? Just came out with a ballad of snakes
Songbirds
and songbirds.
and Snakes. Suzanne Collins.
Suzanne Collins. Yes, I think she does that well.
She does.
Just
Ballad
gets
of
out of the
Songbirds and
way
Snakes is
of her
really
story, which is that's hard.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I want to be there in the midst and like, which word is perfect, and and you have to be like, just which word
conveys
is clear.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
So he does that really well.
Eschew obfuscation.
Nice.
I didn't make that up. That's William Strunk.
Yeah.
Strunk and white.
Yes. Of Strunk and
Of
White.
Strunk and
fame.
white.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So, do you think you'll be reading other Stephen King books? Because not all of his
Good
are horror,
question.
and I can let you know which ones I've read that I like.
Yes, I would. Actually, my brother says I must read The Gunslinger.
Oh, Peter loves that one. I haven't read that one, but
So I suppose since my brother did not steer me wrong with fairy tale, I will humor him and read The Gunslinger.
Okay. Yeah, because that was something else I was going to ask if there are other books by in this genre or by these authors that we will read because of our books that we just read here. But
right.
Yes.
that's a great question.
Yes.
for
Well,
you.
Dead Zone is a really good one. They made a show out of it. Don't watch the show.
Okay. Yeah, for most of them.
Right.
I mean, I have seen a Stephen King movie or TV show here and there, and I mean, they're all right.
Well, Christopher Walken is in the movie Dead Zone, and that was good. I mean, Christopher Walken.
He's
hello.
entertaining.
But
always.
read the book first.
Okay.
Anyway.
All right, so your line, listeners, you might love this book if
You're in the mood for a classic fairy tale.
nice.
Wow, succinct.
And
should
you
be a
feel
writer.
you feel comfortable now because you know that the dog is going to be okay.
Yes.
Because someone on the Believe to See podcast spoiled it for you.
But you know what? You're right, though. Like, a lot of people would not read that. Like, this is why I'm not going to read Marley and Me.
Yeah.
No way.
I don't hate myself that much.
No. I didn't know the dog. When I read The Art of Racing in the Rain, I read it partly because the narrator was the dog. I didn't know it was, yeah.
I didn't know. I didn't know.
It was still worth it. I've read it twice. So.
Well, that's high praise.
What is the age range that you would recommend?
I would say, older YA.
Okay.
Up to anybody.
All right. Awesome. Fabulous. Mandy, I'm going to head over to you.
Woohoo. Okay. So I don't know. I feel mine's a little older, so I feel a little silly telling people about it, but I will.
I've never read it, so
Yeah.
please tell us.
So it came out after Grapes of Wrath. Those are his only two big books. All his other books are really tiny.
Yeah, sure.
But when he started writing it, there are notes. Like, I love when the letters of authors to their friends come out later. And apparently what he said about it, he would tell his friends, I've been practicing for this book for 35 years. This is it. And he said he didn't think it was going to be popular because he was experimenting so much with tone and even like structure. And it came out in 1952. The theme, it's biblical in a sense. Some people say it's a loose retelling of the book of Genesis. I see, in the same way that Flannery O'Connor said that the South is Christ haunted, I would say it's definitely the book of Genesis, sort of the epic ancestral lines and familial conflict and all of that stuff is in there, but I don't see it as directly as a lot of as it seems to be marketed or talked about. But the themes are, like I said, definitely family and ancestral line, because it covers generations. There's like, what I would say is what Steinbeck does so beautifully is he not only his setting and his descriptions, which bothers some people, and don't come at me with that because I love his descriptions, but the way that he draws his characters, he draws each one of them so distinctly, and every character has like an internal. It's almost like they're fighting against being who they were made to be, but they really are limited in their ability to do that. Like, he really has this, you sort of get a sense that Steinbeck really sees that each of us is a unique creation. I don't know his faith or lack thereof, but it's very clear that he believed each individual was made a specific way, and it's almost like their lifelong journey is all about going with it or against it, and the loss and the longings that come along with that, and there's lots of grief and lots of betrayal, and I mean, it's just it's such a grand scale. The book is such a grand scale, but at the same time, you really feel like you know every single character in the book. Like, there's no way, like, if you were to read a line of dialogue to me, even though there are tons of characters in here because of the generational, just the time span of the book, I would probably be able to tell you at least which family, because it's primarily two families, the Hamiltons and the Trasks.
Okay.
So at minimum, I would be able to tell you which family was talking, but I could probably tell you which character, because he's that distinct and masterful. And it really is, that's why I want to read it more, is because it's almost like I need to, it's like I'm trying to sort out the magic trick. The sleight of hand. Like, how is he doing that? What is he doing that is making that so beautifully conveyed? How is he doing that?
So what was your strongest emotional response as you were reading or when you finished? Because you said, I don't remember if you said this in the green room or on the podcast, but it's something that you want to read every year.
Yeah, I said it in the podcast.
In the podcast. Okay, yeah.
I want to read it every year because it feels like this whole world that I'm going into, like, and it's not necessarily, I mean, gosh, there's some really terrible people in this book. But I think, like I was just saying, I think one of the reasons I want to read it is because I want to be a better writer. And I think his mastery, it's so beautiful. You can't really see what he's doing and why it's good. You can just tell it's good.
I love that.
And I feel like if I read it more and more, maybe it'll soak in somehow. I don't know. But also some of the characters, I just want to, his good characters are so good. And I don't mean that to say that the good characters are all good and the bad characters are all bad. Not like that at all. But the loved, let me put it that way. The characters I love them so much that I want to be with them again. Well, it's funny because we were talking about, I was telling Bethany this the other day. When we weren't sure if Bethany was a boy or a girl, we couldn't come up with a boy name. We were trying to decide, and we got it down to 3 names, Adam, Sam, and Joe, which is hilarious because all 3 of those are in this book. And I told her, I said, if I had read this book, I would have never doubted you would have been Sam. Because Sam Hamilton is one of my favorite characters I've ever read.
Wow.
He's not even like one of the, well, I don't know. There's so many characters.
So many characters, yeah.
He's a big character. He's not a side character, but he's not like one of the main conflicts. So
that's cool though.
But anyway.
It's always impressive when you can read a book and say, this is the favorite character of all the books he's ever read. Like, this is my hero.
If I
really
embalmed
amazing.
Sam, I actually texted, because Bethany read it before I did. And I texted her and I said, why can't Sam Hamilton be real? I want Sam Hamilton to be a real person. So,
That's really neat.
Yeah.
I have an odd question.
Sure.
There's something about Steinbeck that's just very intimidating to me. And you mentioned before, this is a big book, one of his bigger books. And like, I need help getting over that first page intimidation where you're just like, reluctant. Do you know what I mean? Like, you read the first page and you're somehow reluctant or resistant to letting yourself kind of go along with the story.
What? Can you explain what you mean? Because for me, like, and I guess this is just so to me, when he, the way that Steinbeck starts all of his books, whether they're big or small, it's like he's painting them. And I don't think a person comes in, like if you think of the first page of Mice and Men, there's nobody for like 2 pages. So he paints the whole scene and there's like little bunny rabbits running around and he's, But see, you remember.
Yes.
See? How did he do that? Anyway, and he's talking about all the little creatures next to the water. And to what it feels like when I'm reading that is I feel like he's setting the stage for me and asking me to come in.
Okay.
And then the characters show up. So in my mind, what I see, it's almost like he's literally setting the stage and then introducing the characters.
Yeah.
And that's probably one of the reasons I like Steinbeck so much because I say to me way too much. Anyway, books in which setting is integral and practically a character is my favorite kind of book, and that is 100% Steinbeck.
Okay. I'm wondering if that reaction that I have is, and I'm not specifically talking about Steinbeck, I'm just talking about books in general.
Right.
Because, in the modern world, authors are encouraged to start with action.
In the modern, yes.
And so I wonder if my, reluctance to care has something to do with the action, like starting with action rather than starting with
right
with setting.
Right. Yeah. I'm going to say for me again, it's just going to happen. So for me, with Steinbeck, I really do feel like I think I said it this way, but there's sort of a sinking into feeling that I get when I read Steinbeck. And that's my favorite part of reading, is feeling enveloped and embraced by the world I'm walking into. Not every book I read feels like that. That doesn't mean I don't like books that don't do that.
Yeah.
But the ones that do that are my perennial favorites.
Yeah.
That's what I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of my favorite parts, there's and the movie, of course, focuses on the sons, Cal and Aaron, which are twins. And it's stated in the book, oh, Cain and Abel. Gee, foreshadowing. I don't know. Anyway, and Cal was famously played by James Dean. Can we have some tears over the fact that man died so young, because he was amazing. But the character of Cal, there's a part in the book where Cal is this small child and he is praying, "Dear Lord, don't let me be mean."
Aw.
But that's who he is. Sorry, spoiler. And so that is a really good example of what I mean when I say that Steinbeck writes characters as sort of integral, like inherently who they are, and they have to battle against whatever their nature is. And it's unique to each character, which is something I don't find in other, even if a character is well drawn, just sort of that intensity is unique to Steinbeck.
That's neat. Yeah, I feel like for me, the stories that usually last in my mind are the ones whose characters come alive, who's so strong that you just identify. Like they're just, you feel like you could walk into their lives, or you have walked into their lives,
Yep.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that last.
That's the magic.
It is the magic.
Right there.
Right there. It's like we're human and we want to read stories about other humans.
I know.
Imagine that.
Weird. Imagine that. It's like we were created for stories.
It's so weird.
Right? So weird.
Well, and another unique thing about this is that he writes it as if he is a great-grandchild of one of the families, but his name is John Steinbeck as the narrator.
Interesting.
But it's not really John Steinbeck, so it's a little kind of winky, funny little thing that he does. And there's this one chapter 34 is like the most beautiful chapter, and it's just him as narrator, John Steinbeck, just sort of talking to the reader, like about the way people are. And this paragraph was so Anselmy that I just had to share it. This is the last paragraph of chapter 34. He says, "We have only one story. All novels, all poetry are built on the never-ending contest in ourselves of good and evil. And it occurs to me that evil must constantly respawn, while virtue is immortal.
Oh my gosh.
Vice has always a new, fresh, young face, while virtue is venerable as nothing else in the world is."
Oh
Wow.
my goodness. That is amazing.
I know.
Whoa.
I know.
Oh my goodness.
No, I'm going to cry. Yeah, no, I love
Yeah.
it. I just,
Wow.
All right. Adds to list.
yeah.
Yeah, also I'm going to ask you to take a picture of that quote because I'm going to write it like down. And
Oh, sure.
that is amazing.
Yeah,
That's so
I
good.
know.
Oh, the quote.
Yeah. Yeah, the quote. Sorry. Yeah, the
Yeah.
quote. Wow. Okay, so listeners might like this book
If they are willing to really sink in and just be in this world, just trust Mr. Steinbeck.
Okay.
Because it is a very different experience. He is definitely experimenting with form, and it feels like several books all in one. So it's an undertaking, but it's not like War
It's
and
not
Peace.
arduous or anything.
It's no.
Okay.
It's not War and Peace or that kind of tome.
Okay.
But-
Sounds great.
Yeah.
So easy to get lost in.
Oh yes.
Okay.
Yes,
See,
yes.
that's a key.
Get lost in the Valley of Salinas.
Lovely. Sounds exciting. Well, I should mention The Awakening of Miss Prim.
Yes, and we get to pepper you with questions.
I was going to
now.
say, I need y'all to ask me some questions, but just to give a brief overview. Yeah, the book is called The Awakening of Miss Prim, and I already mispronounced poor Natalia's whole name, but Natalia San Martin Fenolera. She is a Spanish writer, which is probably why I struggled to pronounce her name because I didn't do Spanish in high school. So this was her first novel, published in 2013. I almost said 1913. That would be a big whoops. So she's an editor of a paper, or was at least at the time of this book in Spain, and this was her first novel. So I think what I really loved about this book, and disclaimer, I suppose, I definitely noticed some things. I was like, okay, if it were me writing this, I may have done this, but and then the ending I love, but also I think there was something missing that I wish she had just put in there. And so, but I think it's there if you want to read into it, but I'm also like, Natalia, girl, you could have brought it home. So anyway, but I think she did just such a stunning job with the almost like a tongue-in-cheek and also just this beautiful commentary on culture and beauty and love and like versus secular philosophy in the clouds. How do you reject emotion in order to stay safe? That kind of stuff. So I really enjoyed it, but it's also kind of tongue-in-cheek because her main character is called Prudentia Prim. And right there, I mean, you know your character, right? You know her. She's a young, I don't know, she's like 20-something, 25 maybe. And she was working in sort of like an office job, but she was just tired. She's like, I just want to go somewhere else. I need to exercise, I don't know, philosophy. I don't know what she's thinking. But anyway, she applies for this random job in a small town as sort of like a librarian, bookkeeper / teacher or something. And has no idea what she's getting into. And it is 100% fantastic. And the other main character never is actually named. He is called the Man in the Wing Chair.
Interesting.
I love that.
Entire story. Yep. Yep. So it's actually, like I said, kind of tongue-in-cheek in that sense, but also delightful and full of some like really good insights. And yeah. So anyway, what questions do you guys have for me on it?
Well, I love your question about emotion. Like, what emotion was there? A specific emotion that kind of overrode others as you read the book?
Yes.
Read the book? Or wrote the book? Whoa. No.
It's my pen name.
It's your pen name, yeah.
And I'm in Spain most of the time, just so y'all know. No, yes, I mean, honestly, my overriding emotion was just delight. I was just like, oh my goodness, what a dream to live in a village like this, to have conversations like this, to have people around me who wanted to live like this and also were living like this, and so many little things. And it wasn't just, at least to me, it didn't feel all sentimental. Like there was points to it about how this particular village decided to live in the modern day and age. But there was also so much of like, no, we are doing this for this beautiful reason of going back to what it means to truly live and to live well. And so for me, it was just delight. I was like, I love that this is set in modern times and it's enchanting. And some of the characters are enchanting. I wish they were my neighbor, that sort of thing.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it was great. But it also didn't gloss over some of the negative aspects of like, yeah, but what if you were to sort of isolate in this way? What would your flaws sort of be? But yeah, I would just say overriding was delight.
So if it's not a spoiler alert, what would you say is the main thing that the character awakens to?
That might be a spoiler.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
Could you say is there a thought or a flaw or something that you think it particularly addresses in the character? Is that a spoiler alert?
That is not necessarily a spoiler alert. And they all go together, of course.
Yeah.
What we encounter changes us and vice versa. She awakens to her false security and self-sufficiency and the supreme, or what she sees as the supreme guiding force of intellect.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
I like that.
it's fun.
All right.
Yeah. Any other questions? Matt, you have not asked me one.
Oh, well, this is a more quotidian question, but was this originally written in Spanish?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so
Yeah.
what did you think of the translation? Like, how's the prose quality?
Oh, that was great.
Okay.
Yeah. No, it was really great. I didn't get tripped up at all. So, yeah. No, it was really good.
So then, if you were to say you should read this because,
The
what would your
Anselm
answer
listeners.
be? Yeah.
Okay, well, it's very Anselmish in the sense of a lot of the Anselm audience likes tradition and old things and
Yes.
sitting by firesides and reading books and having apple pies and things like that.
Oh, yes.
Yes, having this beautiful, I think it's Italy, I think in the book, but, living this beautiful Italian villa with an abbey, in modern day life, like literally an abbey with a monk that's like there in a village. If that sounds like a little dream to you and you want to enter it, you can do that through the character of Prudentia, because it's just as strange and out of place to her as it is to us, sort of in our like daydreams. So yeah, so I'd say if you kind of want to enter a little enchanting nook of Italy, an unexpected nook, then I would say by all means. If you're looking for something lighthearted, with a little bit of romance in there, which is always fun.
Ugh.
I know.
Not for Matt.
I have to say there was no face pressing though.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so I think you'd be okay with it.
Matt approved.
Yeah, there's no
That's it.
face.
They can maybe hold hands and I'm okay with it, but anything beyond is like, come on, people.
Oh, also to her credit, I loved the way Natalia used so many beautiful quotes from literature.
Oh,
like she was
cool.
very educated, clearly. So she pulled a lot of those in, which was both from the main character, Prudentia, because she's all about intellect, and the man in the wing chair. So she's pulling at these like quotes that are amazing and pitting them against each other.
Oh.
As
Were
they
these Spanish authors' quotes or English authors' quotes?
all of the above, like philosophers, like all kinds of.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So it's really
Very
fun.
cool.
It's very fun. So
Okay.
yeah. So those are my notes. All right, so we have a little bit of time. Can we just say a couple honorable mentions?
I also just realized I also have a similar to the dog is okay thing from Evangeline. I want to say this is a spoiler, but I'll go a little sideways. There is a character in the book that at first you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe John Steinbeck is making this character talk like this. This is so racially insensitive. It is a gag, and the character, it does. Just don't worry. It's a gag, and the character is wholly drawn and fine later. So that's all I will say.
It's like,
All right.
don't let it stop you.
Don't let it stop you.
you. It actually ends up being, rather than showing that John Steinbeck is narrow-minded and ridiculous, it's the complete
other way around.
opposite.
Yeah.
So
Nice.
he's doing it on purpose, and it's awesome. But some honorable mentions I had were actually some authors and books that we also had podcasts on, but I don't think we talked about them outside of those podcasts. So I just want to point back to Evangeline and I got to interview Eric Shoemaker and his lovely book, My Last Name, which you can read in about half an hour. It was absolutely lovely. I loved that book. We also interviewed KJ Ramsey, and two of her nonfiction books are gorgeous. This Too Shall Last and the Book of Common Courage. And then I recently interviewed Jen Late, and she has a beautiful book called Favored One, which basically came out of her own Lectio Divina practice of really going through the Magnificat. And so it is about Mary, and it's lovely. Just, yes. In addition to that, my honorable mentions, right before, in the green room, I was holding East of Eden in one hand, and I was holding the Claire Keegan book, Foster, in the other. And it was at the last minute I went with East of Eden because Claire Keegan is an Irish author. Foster is one that I loved, but also Small Things Like These. just absolutely gorgeous, very quick reads, and just loved those.
Wonderful.
So
Thank you.
Okay, my honorable mentions.
he's scrolling on his phone.
Well, it's actually easy because I listen to audiobooks and it keeps like a history, so I just need to go through.
No, but I'm saying this is how many you have, as you have to
Yeah.
scroll.
Make
So-
sure they were from 2023.
I did.
That he read
Good job.
them in 23.
Good job.
Not
Yes.
published in 23.
Yes.
Read in
He
2023.
listened
Right.
to
So,
or
okay.
read.
First one I want to mention, I thought about making this my featured book. It's called Deacon King Kong by James McBride.
I have that. It's in my
It's
stack.
so good. Have you read it yet?
No, it's in my stack.
Yeah.
I'm reading East of Eden. It takes a while.
So it takes place in 1969 in Brooklyn, and it's a really interesting book because it's a really interesting hodgepodge of very different, very like colorfully drawn characters. So it takes place sort of in like it takes place among like American neighborhoods with like Hispanic residents. There's like Italian mobsters that play a role, white police cops. So it's this big hodgepodge of people. The plot is kind of crazy. Like there's sort of this dark comedy aspect to it. It's kind of nuts at some point, but it's really
Well, I mean, Deacon King Kong. That's kind of a...
the name Deacon King Kong is
Yeah.
sort of a hint there, but I thought it was just really great. All the characters really, really well drawn, huge cast of characters that tell a really interesting story. Even though it is sort of darkly funny, there's also real emotion and a real moral heart to it. Don't worry, it's not all that like romance stuff, like other emotions. And I want to use that as a launching point because James McBride's prior book called The Good Lord Bird, one of my favorite books ever. I didn't read it this year, I read it the year before, but love it so much. It is sort of a loose fictional retelling of John Brown, told through the eyes of a narrator who's a young boy who John Brown kind of accidentally liberates from slavery and follows him around. So one of my favorite books ever. Just a very nuanced.
That's hilarious.
It is. It's actually really funny at a lot of points.
That's cool.
Really nuanced and thoughtful look at John Brown, among other people. So really great. Highly recommend both of those James McBride books. I mentioned earlier that I read White Noise by Don DeLillo this past year. Really enjoyed it. See my thoughts on the cynical literature in more depth. Another one that I thought about making my featured one, it's very similar to The Forest of Stolen Girls in that it checks all the boxes of a detective story, but it's also much more than that. That is A House of Ghosts by W.C. Ryan. It takes place in Britain, or kind of Ireland too, right after World War I. So there's like a detective fiction, there's like this supernatural thriller because the premise is they're having a seance to communicate with all of the sons, the brothers that were lost in World War I. Really great, really thoughtful book. Also, City on Fire by Don Winslow. That one is a retelling of the Iliad. So I get my Horses of Fire thing here a little bit. But it's a retelling of the Iliad among gangsters in Providence in the 1980s.
Whoa.
So it's a faction of Irish gangsters versus a faction of Italian gangsters. In the way Winslow sort of creative parallels between the Iliad is, I think, really great. So those are my honorable mentions. I had more, but Christina was like doing like the playing me out music, telling me that I'm taking too much time. So maybe I'll
we should just do book talk.
maybe I'll just filibuster some more.
Wow.
We should do a book talk on a regular basis.
Like
Because we have
podcast
too many
book
to
club.
talk about.
No, we have many to talk about.
Yeah.
I just want to respect our listeners' time. Matthew. Matthew.
Whatever. They know what what they were getting in for.
Yeah.
Just go through the titles of the others.
Okay, other
Yeah.
ones.
They trust you. They trust your judgment.
My nonfiction books: The First 1,000 Years by Robert Louis Wilkin, Will in the World by Stephen Greenblatt, and a very interesting one, Number Go Up by Zeke Fox.
Interesting, actually.
Ooh,
Number
another
go up
one
is
I
about
loved.
crypto.
I just remembered another one I loved called "Tell the Wolves I'm Home," by I can't remember the name of the author. I'm looking. "Tell the Wolves I'm Home" by Carol something. I don't have my reading glasses on.
Hey, I mean, with Google, you can Google a title and it's right there.
I know.
So, plus it's a pretty unique title.
But it's cool. It's set in the 80s, and as a child of the 80s, she nailed it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. That's great. I have a couple too. Princess and the Goblin, Princess and Curdy, George MacDonald. Obviously not written in 2023. But
Now I'm going to tell you to hurry up, Christina.
I am hurrying.
No, not written in 23, but read in 23.
Yes,
I don't think
yes.
any of mine were written in 23.
I don't know that mine were either.
Did you have some, Evangeline?
Yes, I just have two. So Mexican Gothic is like a
Mexican Gothic.
Mexican Gothic. The title is very descriptive.
Yeah.
But it was very, very entertaining, very atmospheric.
Good.
So it checked all the boxes. So definitely recommend that one. And then the other one, really kind of out of my wheelhouse probably, was The Righteous Mind by Jonathan Haidt.
Oh, yeah, that's really good.
Oh,
Yeah.
I've heard the good things about that one.
Yeah, that was really fascinating.
Nice.
Just like digging into why we think the way that we think and how we
Yeah.
differ. So, yeah.
And
Those
if
are my
people haven't listened to the Evangelical Imagination podcast, you really have to, because the one that we did, Karen Swallow Prior,
Nice.
it was one of my favorite books, like ever.
Yeah, it's a great.
It's a very important book, and it's on some short lists for some pretty prestigious awards.
It is. No, it is. All right, so the rest of mine were Sea of Tranquility. Very delightful. Actually, I think, Matt, have you read Sea of Tranquility?
I have not.
Okay.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay.
I didn't know I interrupted your list. Go
Oh,
ahead.
no, it's just quick. So that's a really fun one. It's about, in the future, space travel and stuff, and I can't give much more out of the way, but Matt, I think that's your kind of book. And The Good Left Undone by Adriana Trigonani.
Ooh, I like that title.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's quite delightful, and it really brings to life World War One. Yeah, World War One. Wow, I'm totally World War One in Italy. It's fascinating.
That's cool.
Or World War II. Wow, I'm so sorry. That is so embarrassing.
One of the world wars.
One of the world wars. And then a nonfiction for children is Knock on a Star. It is, it's introducing poetry to children, and it is delightful. Great selection of poetry, and just really breaking down what a poem is, why we write them, why they're, what they do for us, how to read them for kids. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. So, all right, any last ones? I don't want to cut anyone off for real.
No,
We got it?
I'm okay, Christina.
we're all good.
All right. Well, then things are definitely winding down here at the Anselm Society Digital Pub. The fire is down to embers, the customers are trundling home, and we've all polished off our final glasses. Once again, Believe to See is a podcast of the Anselm Society Arts Guild. To find out more about the Anselm Society, please visit us at anselmsociety.org. And while you're at it, please rate and review the show on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you again for joining us, and we'll see you next time.